This is Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Proudly on. Say it with me now. AFR Talk. Now, you can go to the Facebook page of Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. AFR Talk, American Family Radio. I encourage you to do that. Like the page. But Crane, we really don't like you. That's okay. You can just like the page. And then you can engage. It's all the rage. No more. Because I will not be Jesse Jackson with a third rhyme. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth now welcomes, author, yes, How Medicaid Fails the Poor, Manhattan Institute Senior Fellow. He writes the Apocryphy. I had that in front of me, and I wasn't going to blow the pronunciation, at Forbes.com. He was an advisor to Mitt Romney for health care during the 2012 campaign. Avik Roy. Welcome, Avik.
I feel like I should be going on a job interview right now. That's a pretty good recitation of my resume.
That's it. I would keep going, then we'd be out of time, and people would say, Crane, you never got to him, man. Come on. So professional. All right, hey, tell me something. Avik, first off, welcome back. Great to be with you. Your thoughts so far on President Obama's apology. Was it an apology?
Yeah, so I wrote a piece for Forbes at the Apothecary that you mentioned on this topic the other day. And the way I analogize it is this. Imagine a husband goes to his wife and says, I'm really sorry that you're hurt, that I cheated on you. I'm going to take steps so that in the future I cheat on you less frequently. Would you think of that as an apology? And that's effectively what the president said about Obamacare. He didn't apologize for the policies that are causing insurance cancellation. He just said that he felt bad that people were going through this difficult time.
Speaking of the difficult times and the plan that was put in place that has caused people to have their canceled policies, David Cutler was on the Megyn Kelly show, little show on Fox. No, I mean, this thing's kicking tail. And bottom line, he was asked about this, and was this part of the plan? And here is what he had to say. Roll it.
No, this is absolutely not how it was envisioned, because what was envisioned is that people would be able to see the new premiums and see the new coverage. And so many people would actually say, you know what, I actually don't want this old policy because I can get better.
That it would be
cheaper.
A choice, not that they would be kicked off because the insurance companies had no choice but to cancel policies that no longer complied with the law.
Correct. So the vast bulk of people who are in the individual market were paying much higher premiums per dollar of coverage than people in group coverage.
Right, and you were trying to get them
much lower quality.
I get it. You're trying to sort of get them to sort of behave as a group and not as an individual, which you thought would save costs. Here's my question to you now.
Exactly.
Okay. It was trying to get them to save costs. When you look at the plan for this, as you have, and broken it down in premiums, did they not... When they did this, did they just not factor in the response from insurance companies?
David is right and he's wrong in the way he presented the case of the administration. He's right, certainly, that the administration didn't envision the website being a complete disaster. Mm-hmm. They anticipated that, you'd have all these canceled policies, but people would be able to shop on these new exchanges, and certain people, low-income people in particular, would benefit from the subsidies that are associated with the plans on these exchanges. However, the underlying cost of health insurance under Obamacare is much higher than what it was before. We at the Manhattan Institute did a comprehensive study of this, and we posted on my Forbes blog. We found that the average state will see a 41% increase in the cost of health insurance for the average person, and it's much higher in the typically red states that have more lightly regulated insurance markets.
So, bottom line, as they didn't see this, and they didn't see the cost going up, and they didn't see the amount of people that would be off their health insurance. Let's hit that number for a second here. Say 93 million people will be off their... They will have to either, is that to just change plans, or will they just lose their health insurance? What happens there? The 93 million.
some of them, like the people who we've been hearing about in the news lately, are going to lose their plans and can't buy a new plan because the Obamacare exchange isn't working. For many of those people, the 93 million, I'd say about 2/3 of them to 3/4 of them, they get insurance from their employer, so they'll lose their old coverage. It'll be replaced with new coverage that's Obamacare compliant, but Obamacare compliant coverage is much more expensive because the federal government is dictating all sorts of bells and whistles that the plans have to have that make them more expensive.
So, bottom line, we've just covered two topics. One, how the insurance was going to work to subsidize those who didn't have insurance and weren't able to afford the type of insurance that would be offered today, would have been offered in the past. And so it's the change. It's getting everybody into a group pool. And as you've researched and you've talked about the community rating, is it the idea of bringing?
That's one of them.
Yeah.
There's a whole raft of provisions in Obamacare whose basic purpose is to redistribute wealth from the healthy to the sick, from the young to the old, and from the middle class to the poor. And that's done partly through taxes and spending, but a big part of it is done through these premiums. So younger, healthier, upper-income people and middle-income people are going to pay much higher premiums, and sicker, older, and lower-income people are going to have better premiums, better deal. They're going to have a better deal because there's going to be subsidies that help defray the cost of some of these premiums. So it's a giant redistribution scheme done through the health insurance system.
And that was known. That's part of the plan.
That was known. That was the design. And so David, okay, I'm afraid, isn't being completely straightforward when he claims that no one was going to be hurt by this, because it was always known to people who were straightforward about it that there were going to be winners and losers in this law, and the losers were going to be, generally speaking, people with middle incomes and above, and people who are healthy.
And I appreciate you walking through, sometimes going backtracking and restating things, Avik, because it's complicated. And
I know.
I'm a talk show host. I'm a little slow. You have to, break it down for us here. We have you experts on, and then we think we understand at times. Bottom line, when we look at this and we look at what was put forth, there was one thing that bothered me about this, and you highlighted it too, and you spoke to the fact that what you just said about the premiums going up and about the subsidies, they did not want that information out there without.
Absolutely not.
Okay, and so that was planned. That was planned to hold that information back with the website specifically.
Well, so I'll tell you a couple of stories. In the spring, when I first started writing about increased premiums under Obamacare, and you and I talked at that time, I got such ferocious pushback from the left. I mean, they basically tried to demonize me, and I like to think I'm a pretty mild-mannered guy, but they were going after me, talking about what a dishonest hack I was, for simply pointing out that based on the insurance carrier documents that were filed with state governments, the cost of insurance under Obamacare was going to go up a lot. And to your point, the administration knew this too, and they were so paranoid about it, so worried about it, that this was going to be a big political blow-up, that they tried to engineer the website so that the true underlying cost of the health insurance would be hidden from you. Only the taxpayer-subsidized version you'd be able to see, so that, again, lower-income people would not think that they were benefiting from subsidies and wouldn't realize that the law had actually made the underlying cost of health insurance more expensive. And because they wanted to make that kind of build that facade over the health insurance market, they made the health insurance a lot more complicated, and that was a big reason why it initially crashed.
And speaking to the complication and what happens when younger people are paying the higher premiums, as you documented, David Cutler, again, here's another clip from the interview with Megyn Kelly addressing higher premiums and the need to get these people signed up. Roll it.
If the numbers aren't there, then the premiums in the exchanges will be very high, because the people who will go through the most hoops to get coverage are those for whom the costs are highest and the existing coverage is the worst. So it is very important that people get enrolled, that enough people get enrolled through the exchanges.
And if they don't, I mean, does the law collapse upon itself?
It doesn't collapse, but it is much, much harder, because all of a sudden you've got insurance companies that don't know exactly what the mix of their enrollees will be, so it becomes very difficult.
And so, Avik, that's pretty much saying what you have said and laid out. And what bothers many of us, I'm sure you, not only being attacked for this, is there was deception going in because they knew that this thing, if you sold it on some merits, it wouldn't sell. Would you agree with that?
So convinced of the righteousness of their cause, that universal coverage is this obviously self-evidently noble goal, that they were willing to lie to get it through. They think of it as the noble lie, the lie that has to be done in order to achieve a greater end, a greater good. So that's how they saw it, and now that's coming to roost, and I doubt that anyone on the left really regrets that they did it that way, because they know that the law would never have passed if they'd been honest about how much the law was going to drive up the cost of health insurance and how it was going to force people off the coverage that they currently enjoy.
If I'm not mistaken, by the way, we just played 2 clips from Megyn. I'm not into promoting Megyn Kelly's show. She doesn't need it, of course, but I do want people to know. And a few weeks back, you were on this, giving a full-on interview explaining what we're talking about now, and we are even seeing it manifestly more evidence of it day by day. And so it really speaks to what you have been for so many of us, which is, hey, the teacher, the person has to bring it in and explain it to us. And when we hear that you were attacked, another strategy, I'm not conspiratorial, but this is what happens. If you don't like the message and you can't deal with it on substance, attack the messenger. And you've had to deal with that. But now we are in a... Go ahead. Yes.
I was going to say, I was very fortunate that a lot of people like you and a lot of people out there in the conservative movement had my back and defended my work. And I think that blunted a lot of that personal stuff. And fortunately, we got through it, and we were able to get back to focusing on the issues. But it was a crazy time.
Yeah, and focusing on the issues. The issue today, people are talking about former President Bill Clinton, saying you got to keep the promise. And I play the clip, but we don't have the time, and I want to hear you. So tell me this. Carney's saying, we agree with that. Then he attacks the opponent, and then he says, we're working on modifying things. Tell me, with what President Clinton laid out today of keeping the promise of keeping your health care, Ron Johnson's law that you refer to, I believe, in Forbes, I've read a bunch of your stuff today again, but bottom line, can that be done right now? Is that even possible?
I think there's a realistic shot that the Ron Johnson bill passes the Senate. I don't know if the president wants to sign it or not, because it will weaken the Obamacare exchanges to some degree. And I will tell you this. A number of the insurance companies are worried that this is unworkable. It's too late. The tripwire has been set, so to speak. The train has left the station, and now that these new insurance contracts have been made and the old ones have been broken, it's hard to go back. I hope they're wrong, but that is a concern I've heard from people in the insurance industry. So we'll have to see. But one thing I do know is that so long as Republicans stay on this track of letting the law play out and holding the Democrats accountable for the things that go wrong, they're going to be in a lot stronger position than they were when they were trying to shut down the government over all this stuff.
Tell me this. What would you do as the solution to it? Is full repeal the only way to go?
No, It's not. And you and I have talked about that before. Is that you can do things to dramatically deregulate these exchanges to make them look like actual marketplaces. They're very heavily regulated. They're not really free markets because insurers have very little latitude to design products that consumers want. But you could change that. You could dramatically change. You could do radical surgery to the law, or major surgery to the law, that would get rid of a lot of these central planning-like provisions. And then you could have an actual free market for health insurance, the kind that conservatives have always supported and always advocated. So I don't think all hope is lost. I don't think repeal is the only arrow in our quiver.
When you write a book, How Medicaid Fails the Poor, and you see a dramatic increase in the people because of Obamacare going to Medicaid, what are we going to face if it's already failing? Does this mean that Obamacare will only exacerbate that failure?
Well, Medicaid is not failing by their standards. So enrollment in Medicaid has increased dramatically. So, yeah, people have had a tough time logging into the website, but the Medicaid program has had, they've reported that about 450,000 people have enrolled in the Medicaid program, may even be higher than that. So it's because it was an existing program and it was easy to add on to, and I think that's something that the Democrats really are happy about. But Americans shouldn't be happy about it because the Medicaid program is a $450 billion failure that doesn't actually provide people with better health care than the kind of health care people get with no insurance at all. And that's the big problem with Medicaid. We spend all this money, we bust all these state budgets trying to pay for Medicaid, and it doesn't actually make people healthier. So I really think it's great that a lot of Republican states have resisted the Medicaid expansion, but not all of them have. Some Republican governors and some Republican legislatures in places like Michigan and Ohio have expanded Medicaid, and I wish we focused more attention on that because that's a winnable fight that we're losing.
You come back on, we will. But we're out of time tonight. All right. It's great. Avik, thank you for all your work. You really do provide the primers that we need here in the laity, and you break it down so even Crane Durham can understand. Great to be with you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Crane. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. How Medicaid fails the poor. Avik Roy. On the flip side, we have George Clooney in studio. Not. Did you just do a Wayne's World not? Okay. He's not in studio. We have a clip. You're going to respond to it, and I promise you'll like it. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.